Chapter 31, Emergency Meeting. Now, after the moron had left, this is what we did. Right about then, Sae had returned from his scouting mission. Just in time. Gathering everyone, I decided to hold a conference. From the hobgoblins, Rigurdo, Rigurdo, and Rarina. Kajin representing the dwarfs. Benimaru, Hakiru, Xian, and Sae representing the Oni. And myself. All together, 12 people. The current core members. Kajin also speaking on behalf of the construction and manufacturing departments. Department of Production is supervised by Rarina. Department of Governance has Rigurdo at the top and 3 chiefs making up the judicial, legislative, and executive branches. However, this particular department is not completely established yet, but that's a problem for the future. Department of War by Benimaru and Hakiru. Department of Intelligence by Sae. Department of Defense by Rhaegar. At present, we have only 6 departments active in our city. Well, though I say active, they are so in name only. However, it's probably a good idea to slowly develop them. Currently, everyone is living with little worry about food. The Department of Defense is also regulating hunting, so that sector should be fine. If I think about it, Rhaegar is handling things well. He's one of those unsung heroes, isn't he? Frankly, about the Department of War, Benimaru knows nothing except numbers of soldiers when it comes to the art of war. So it's an appointment in name only. It was something that I had to do. Rarina shows promise. After obtaining a potato-like plant, she succeeded in its cultivation. With short harvest cycles and high nutritional value, it will improve our food supply. In the future, when we trade with the humans, we should obtain many different vegetable seeds. The construction and manufacturing departments are completely left to Kajin. He normally specializes in smithing, but after Kurobi joined, he ended up in a managerial position. Seems like Kajin has been completely separated from his field of expertise. However, he had entrusted it all to Kurobi. According to Kajin, they are still busy with establishing the smithy, but once things calm down, he'll devote himself fully to production. That's how it is. He probably wants to come back soon. Xian is in charge of my care. I kind of want to rethink that post, but right now, no matter where we put her, it'll be bad for my heart. For now, let's wait and see. And, about Sae. He's strange. I know I appointed him as a ninja, but he's taking it too seriously. He can make clones appear from any direction. While their abilities drop, they have no movement restrictions. Furthermore, he can deploy 6 clones without any restrictions. And even if I say their abilities decrease, that's only about their vigor, HP, and magical energy, MP, it becomes 1/10 of original. Their movement abilities and attack power are completely unchanged. An ability superior to mine. Actually, all the Oni are strange. Sae, as I had just described. Shuna had specialized in my analysis ability and awakened to the unique skill analytic. Our abilities are basically identical, with the exception that she doesn't need to eat the target. She can analyze with eyesight alone. Kurobi had awakened to the unique skill researcher. This skill also bears great semblance to my own. As someone who specializes in production, it is a very useful skill. Hakiru has had his perception ability accelerated by 1,000 times. So I basically can't see him losing in a battle. Xian, as you'd expect, obtained Herculean Strength X and Physical Strength X. Moreover, she also awakened to a special skill battle craze that she should absolutely never use. Last up, Benimaru. This bastard learned Black Lightning of all things. Seriously. Of all the dangerous skills I did not want circulating. I think I'll need to come up with some countermeasures. Anyhow, they seem to have inherited my skills and completed their evolution. Now then, let's start the conference. First, let's hear the report. Upon my order, Sae began conveying the state of affairs. Everyone silently listened. He sent out 6 clones to gather intel 1. Goblin villages 2. State of the marshes 3. State of the orc army. He seems to have sent 2 clones to each location. First, the goblin villages have decided to join the lizardman's raid leader Gabble as his warriors. Probably that lizard from some time ago. To have decided to serve that moron, what weird tastes they have. Those that decided against joining him have ran away in various directions. There were also a few that ran in the direction of human countries, but they'll probably end up as subjugation targets. As long as goblins established their communities in the forest, the humans would stay away, but if you invade their territory, they would surely bare their fangs. And while I don't know the human strength, they will surely order a subjugation quickly. When they do, the goblins could only continue living in hiding. Their future looks grim. While on this topic, I also listened to the report about Gabble. Somehow, the goblins he had gathered numbered 7,000 warriors. A decent army. As we had gathered, they once appealed to the orcs, but were rejected. At least they can use their head a bit. However, they were also forced to take along with them all their food, so even if they survive against the orcs, there will surely be people dying afterwards. But we won't be doing anything about that. That was the unanimous decision of their clan chiefs who decided that such a fate was better than being murdered by the orcs. And besides, we are not an NPO. We have only begun establishing the city, but abandoning it would not be fun. If we allow the orcs to invade this far, the forest ecosystem would probably collapse, which is why we must stop them at the marshes. Now about the marshes. Here, the lizardmen's head had begun assembling troops and prepared an army of 10,000. Living off the lake's fish, they have an abundance of food. Furthermore, they are barricading themselves in their natural labyrinth in preparation of any attack. But are the orcs an enemy that they should so fear? So let's hear about the orcs. The orc army, numbering 200,000. 200,000. I thoughtlessly let out my voice. The orcs who attacked the ogres numbered only 10,000, so the ones who attacked our village was but a single division? Right. After investigating, that much became clear. Their army consists of 200,000 warriors. Coming from the south, they took a relatively wide route and are aiming for the marshes. I don't really know the geography yet. Sae, do you have a map or something? What would a map be? What did he say? For there to be so few people who know about maps, Cajun had known. He knew of them, but none in circulation. Seems like this world is treating maps as a military secret. Hakuru's grandfather had drawn the map of the villages surrounding on a block of wood. Having no paper hurts. Anyways, holding a wood block, we'll carve the map of our city's vicinity. Using the map in my head and Rigger's knowledge, we have Hakuru record the information. This way, using all our knowledge, we created a halfway decent map. Before even getting to the main issue of the conference, we had wasted 2 hours on map creation. And here we took a short break. I don't need it, but the goblins probably do. Shuna brought in a tray of food. Following her, a group of girls followed with more trays. I changed into my child form. Maybe rest is unnecessary, but meals are important. Since I have this human form, I might as well eat while tasting. As long as it's not made by Xian, that is. Since getting used to human transformation, I managed to transform already wearing clothing. Seems like practice really does wonders. A feast was laid before me. And for some reason, Shuna had sat right by me. Just in case, I have to check, the appearance is normal, but what about the inside? Clearly lacking spices, seems like a bunch of ingredients were stir-fried together. Who cooked this? I felt a sharp glance from my side. Gulp. Somehow, I'm getting very nervous. Let's eat. Until I had said it, nobody moved. Seems like if I don't eat first, nobody will begin. I had been hoping that someone would finally eat, but seems like I need to steel myself. It's fine. Xian did not make this. However, I kind of regret changing into a form that has a sense of taste. With those thoughts, I reached for the food. But not with chopsticks, since we only had spoons. Bringing some soup to my mouth, I take a sip. It was delicious. Delicious. The moment I said so, everyone moved. But hey, you guys, how can you just watch your lord drink poison? Though it's not poison per se, and I also have a resistance to most poisons, however, I want to be a bit more considerate. Chances are, Shuna had pulled some strings ahead of time. Upon hearing my praise, Shuna's face lit up in a full smile. Grabbing my plate, she insisted to feed me. Seeming a bit happy and a bit embarrassed. Though I'm an adult, I'm a child at heart. Appearance that of a little girl. Even if I let her feed me, there shouldn't be any problems. Fufane victory laugh escaped from Shuna while she glanced at Xian. Tears seemed to have started to form in Xian's eyes, but her expression quickly turned to that of surprise after she had tasted the dish. Right, Shuna. If you polish your cooking skills a bit more, they'll really shine. You'd never consider putting strange things into people's food. even without seasoning, to be able to bring out the taste of the ingredients this well. But was Benimaru a test subject for the many dishes before this that I could not have known about? Well, Shuna was probably a cooking prodigy. She could probably perfect the taste using her analytic skill. That isn't a waste of ability, that's the proper way to use it. It's been a long time since I last enjoyed a meal this much. With the end of the meal comes the end of our break. We have a pretty good time. But now we need to get down to business. The object that clearly explains the nearby geography is called a map. Looking at this map, let's continue the report. Having said so, everyone crowded around the map. Well, I can also transmit the image to everyone using telepathic communication. Sawe marked the orcs' army with a wooden chip. I was in the middle of teaching goblins basic arithmetic, so I don't know if they'll understand all of this. But there's nothing we can do about that, we need to continue the discussion. The orcs' invasion route. There are 3 routes leading to the center of the Jura forest that the orcs could use. One runs from the Kanat mountain range. The other along Ameld River. These connect North Forest and South Forest. But this is not a straight path, as the river runs east along the way. They could probably have the soldiers cross at the place where Ameld River meets the Eastern Empire's river. However, there is no route that could support a large army from the orcs' current position. Therefore, they probably decided to invade the marsh from the west. However, the forest will hamper their attempts to move beyond the river. According to Hakiru, there is a community of treants in this forest, so avoiding them would leave the orcs' army less exhausted. The western route had the ogres' village, but its fate is common knowledge now. They were a high-class race, but too few in number. Thus, the orcs decided to avoid the route with the treants, who were similarly high-classed but many. And, after eliminating the ogres, they opened the invasion route to the marshes and were now planning their formation. However, with 200,000 soldiers, how are they keeping them fed? What are they doing about food? To my question, I looked into it. A group of common foot soldiers escorts caravans of food. However, there is clearly not enough. With some hesitation, he quickly added, "This is but my opinion, but I think they've had deaths from starvation and resorted to cannibalism of the dead." What an unpleasant thing he had said. Were orcs such a race? No matter how omni, they do indeed eat anything, but isn't this much expected? To that question, no, I am not certain about this. However, there are no bodies after they leave. And our village has also been wiped clean, without anything remaining. There is a skill that comes to mind, but, having realized the truth, Sawe said. Could it be Orc Lord? Without waiting for Sawe's response, Benimaru concluded. Exactly. This is not certain, but there's a good chance the Orc Lord had appeared. At the very least, a high-class Orc Knight is leading them. Probably that thing that had attacked our village. To summarize the conversation, the Orc Lord is a unique monster that holds powerful ruling abilities over the orcs. Appears once every few hundred years. Causing violence across the world, a horrible monster. And he seems to possess the unique skill starving ones. This skill, bestowed upon his subordinates as well, allows them to eat anything and everything in sight. A truly terrible skills. In the first place, not enough time had passed since the last one, but now, he's already grown and prepared an army. If he lacks some intelligence, then there's a high chance that the Demon Lord had forcefully accelerated his growth. In any case, the Orc Lord is a troubling existence. Such an annoying guy should have been put down long ago, but I will not complain. While keeping the existence of the Orc Lord in mind, we continue the conference. Arranging wooden pieces on the map in place of pawns, we mark the Lizardman army of 10,000. Behind them, Gabble's army of 7,000 goblins. Having done so, we clearly see what is abnormal about the orc army, but more importantly. This way, that stupid lizard's headquarters would fall from a single attack, wouldn't it? Right. The Lizardman's envoy called Gabble. That guy is planning on attacking the Lizardman's fortress, while they are preoccupied fighting with the orcs. The exhausted and few Lizardmen there would surely fall quickly. That is how wonderfully the goblins are positioned. However, there is no reason to attack his own lizard. It could be just suspicion born out of the strange place he had halted his troops. However, so that's how it is. Hakiru nodded. A strange fire burned in his eyes. However, even if they bring down the headquarters, then they would be trampled down by the orcs. I am thinking too much, aren't I? I'm just thinking too much. Sorry, I'm an amateur after all. I had planned to continue the discussion after those words, but no, what you said is likely. I can think of no other reason to assume that position. That guy is an idiot after all. He's probably intending to replace the current head. Such was the opinion from both members of the Department of War. I mean, I know he's an idiot, but was he that much of an idiot? However, in this case, stopping that guy is probably the best idea. That was the conclusion we had reached. Now then, how should we stop Gabble? I would want to establish a proper alliance with the lizardmen. We are few in numbers. However, I feel we shouldn't abandon them. Hakuruso added, and everyone accepted. I also agreed. But forming an alliance is good and all, but we're far too outnumbered here. Won't we just be used in the end? I tried expressing my worries. The Oni exchanged glances. Rimuru-sama, calm your fears. Each one of us is capable of decimating 10,000 foes, this much is of no concern. Hakuryu answered as their representative. They read too much manga, no way they can take on 10,000 each. Is what I thought, but Rimuru-sama, I plan to go and negotiate. To have a discussion directly with the lizardman's head. Would you permit me? Sae had so asked and waited for my response. How confident? Should I try leaving it to him? Using the map, we had made some predictions. That allowed us some temporary mental respite. I decided to send out Sae. Alright. In that case, I order you to talk with the lizardman's head. Demand equal treatment. With those words, I sent out Sae. I live to serve. With that response, he immediately disappeared into the shadows. He's quick on his feet. Seems to have left already. The rest, with these things in mind, continue preparations. Those words ended the conference. In some sense, we have decided next course of action. If we can form an alliance, that would be great, and if we can't, we'll cross that bridge then. There's no use thinking about those things. Rather, we must do what can now be done. And thus we continued our preparations while waiting for the next piece to move on the board. But an Orc Lord, huh? If he truly had appeared, that'll probably be an annoying fight. Thinking about the future made me fall slightly into melancholy. Chapter 32, Stage Curtain Rises. Leveling the ground in their wake, the Orc army advanced into the forest. Trample them. Trample them. Trample them. Trample them. While lifting their voices, with a glow in their eyes, the Orc army advanced into the forest. There was not a single normal thought in their minds. Everything their eyes fell upon was food. They forever hungered, and only the desire to eat pushed them forward. Collapse. Again, a comrade had fallen. But they were overjoyed. More food. They thought. Normally, he was their dear comrade. Now, he was but a lump of flesh to eat. He was still breathing, but to them, it meant the meat was fresh. Those fortunate to be walking close immediately began disassembling the corpse. The liver was reserved for the squad leader, but the rest went to he who grabbed it first. Gotcha 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 gotcha, a disgusting sound reverberated through the land. They always hunger. And their strength rises the hungrier they are. That is the effect of the unique skill-starving ones. As far as they eat their fallen comrades, as long as their hunger remains unfulfilled, their strength will continue to rise. They are the 200,000 Orc army. Under the control of the Orc Lord, an army that marches through the hell of starvation. Never to see salvation. Just marching forward to satisfy their hunger. Never being able to satisfy it, an endless hell. Before them lay the ogre village. They are only rank D monsters. Normally, they could only feel fear towards the rank B ogres. Directing killing intent at them would have been unthinkable. However, trample them. Trample them. Trample them. Trample them. Their feet would not stop. Rather, they ran towards the food. Towards the rampaging ogres, their relentless strength. How many comrades were torn to pieces, how many cut down, however. That mattered not to the orcs who saw the fallen as merely more food. They were overjoyed. Perhaps they could satisfy their hunger, if a bit. A single ogre had fallen. Immediately, the orcs crowded the corpse and began dismembering it. Drinking blood and devouring flesh. Oh, but that did not satisfy their hunger. But the orcs' bodies had changed, they absorbed the ogre's strength. Seeing their friends gulped down by lowly orcs, the ogres let out a scream of agony. Lamenting the weakness of their overwhelming power, gradually, those filled with power appeared from within the orcs. Devour our comrades, and make their powers ours. Devour our enemies, and make their powers ours. And again they eat. Without any fear of death. Someday, their power will grow and surpass that of their king. Their king. The ultimate orc, the orc lord. Their march continues. And now again the prey has appeared before them. The lizardman's head paled upon hearing the report. His greatest fears had come true. According to the report, the powerful ogre village had disappeared after a single day. They were devoured by the orcs. There was no more room for suspicion. The orc lord had appeared. If by numbers alone, 200,000 D-rank orcs against 10,000 C+ rank lizardmen, that could have been an unexpectedly even fight. However, now that the orc lord had appeared, they were no longer D-rank monsters. It would be best to expect their abilities to have risen by 1 to 2 levels. At least, they would be C rank. Worst case scenario, they would have the power of C+. By numbers alone, relentless assault on our exhausted position would prove unbearable, and even a single loss could prove decisive. Moreover, due to the presence of the orc lord, he could no hope for their food to run out. Even if their numbers dwindle, their strength would instead increase. Furthermore, if there was any hope of reinforcements, they could barricade themselves in, but as things stand, that would end in a hungry death. They have no choice but to attack. The head bitterly concludes. Gabble, who he sent to gain the cooperation of the goblins, has yet to report. However, if they waste too much time there, their enemy will only grow stronger. In worst case scenario, he might just have to lead the troops into battle before Gabble's return. Suddenly, he felt an aura stronger than he had ever felt before approaching. The head decided not to show any resistance to this being. Calling for a subordinate, he ordered that the guest be guided in. The lizardmen had previously collapsed some of the roots of their natural labyrinth, and having those cleared by someone would be unpleasant. The being who approached them certainly had that much power. Now, all he had to do was wait. Led by his subordinate, a single demon had appeared. Darkish skin, blue-black hair, blue eyes, and a height of 190 centimeters. For a monster, he had a rather slim build. However, his presence radiated composure and unblemished strength. A being from whom he felt overwhelming power. The head kept the 100 warriors stationed around him. With a single word, he could command them all to arms, however, that would surely mean their deaths. Upon seeing this demon, the head felt that very fact. Pardon us, we are rather troubled at the moment and cannot provide an adequate welcome. What business would you have with us today? The young lizardman warriors got angry at those words. Why must we grovel before this suspicious character, they thought. The head would normally praise such thoughts, but now it would only bring misfortune. If they spoiled his mood, he could, without a doubt, massacre them all. The young ones have too little experience with the phenomenal. They do not have the ability to judge others' power. However, contrary to his fears, no serious business. Calm yourselves. My name is Sao. My master wishes to form an alliance with you. I have been sent for that purpose. Think of me as a messenger. Rejoice. My lord has refused to abandon you. Moreover, he offers to become your allies. What be your response? Completely in contrast to his first statement, such a speech he delivered. The meaning of the words aside, that is, the message was brief. However, he seems to demand an immediate decision. But the head needed to think. Sao. So he called himself, this demon. A named monster with overwhelming power. And such a monster serves someone. If they side with such a being, then perhaps even the orc lord could be defeated. Moreover, they are offering an alliance and not servitude. That would mean that the lizardmen would be treated as equals. What choice did he have but to accept? So he thought. But at that moment, head. Why do you permit him to run his mouth thus? Where he hails from we don't know, but the proud lizardman shouldn't flatter such a pompous fool. Exactly. Gabble Sama should soon return, and then we alone could handle the lowly orcs. Right. Their master probably fears the orcs and came to cling on to us. Doesn't he simply want us to save him? How charming. The ones who so shouted were Gabble's subordinates. Caught with his mouth open, the head's face twisted in horror and dismay. Even if you idiots can't understand the power of the man in front of you, to go and reject someone's offer of an alliance, yes, his speech was slightly impolite. However, it is unbecoming for some foot soldiers to show disrespect to a messenger. Moreover, for someone of higher status to himself journey to us offsets any possible disrespect. He had thought he sent a group with an outgoing personality to the negotiations, but that seems to have backfired. Have we angered him? Thinking so, he looked at Sawae. He had not averted his sight, but looked straight at the head. He seemed to have no intention of humoring the noisy idiots. The head felt relief. He could not let a group of ignorant people to ruin the conversation. Silence. With a single word, he shut that group up. He then sent a signal to his bodyguards, "I will decide what we do. You have no right to speak here. Reflect on your foolishness tonight." Gabble's subordinates he had sent to prison. They were making noise on their way out, but he had no time to deal with them. And, to the messenger, "I apologize for their rudeness. I intend to accept the alliance. However, I fear we must hurry. Normally, we would select a neutral zone to discuss the details, but this may be currently impossible. Could I ask you to come here instead?" Hiding his inner nervousness, the head asked that question. To request someone of such clear superiority to appear before them. The messenger had every right to be angry. However, the messenger, with no concern for the head's worries, replied, "Understood. To have received such a quick decision, my master will be glad. We are pleased to fight along with you. Now then, after we finish our preparations we shall join up with you. Then, you shall be able to have an audience with our lord. Act as you see fit." As if completely natural, so Sawae replied. Appearing as if he had never even considered the possibility of being rejected. Had I refused, would he simply destroy the lizardman? This thought filled the head's mind. He was certainly not overthinking it. The demon before him had enough power to do so. "We intend to join you in at most 5 days. Until then, do your best to survive. And, by no means, should you attempt to attack alone." Leaving these words, the demon in front of him disappeared. Without a sound, as if a passing shadow. 5 days, if they just needed to wait that long, they could certainly manage. The orcs may grow stronger, but they could now hope for reinforcement. How large the reinforcement would be, he didn't know. However, even if Sawae were to show up alone, he could possibly turn the tide of battle. Clinging to this one hope and preserving one's strength is surely the best decision here. Having made his decision, the head declared, "Hold the castle. Until reinforcements arrive, hold it no matter what it takes." And, waiting for the decisive battle, the lizardman hid in the labyrinth. Gabble awoke. Then, he needed some time to remember what had happened. And, filled with indignation, he jumped to his feet. "You have come to, my lord," a worried subordinate had said. "I caused you some worry. Seems like they set a trap ahead of time." "A trap, you say?" "Yeah. Those fang wolves used an ingenious trick. They sent their master under the guise of a common wolf, inviting me to lower my guard. Such dirty trick. Rulers of the plains they called them, but they're just beasts who employ cowardly and cheap tricks. I had intended to battle with them fairly, but seems like I was mistaken about them." I see, so it was like that. Were it not for their trick, Gabble-sama would certainly be victorious. Is that how it was? Those dastardly wolves. To resort to such dirty trick. Gabble nodded to such a reaction. It was as they said. There could have been no other reason for his defeat. However, for the proud and powerful race to employ such dirty tactics, Gabble was disappointed in the wolves. However, it is also true that we would have no use to take such cowardly creatures as our comrades. With that in mind, this might actually have been for the best. As you say. Right. Their group laughed loudly. By the way, this is just my personal thought, but I find it strange how Gabble-sama has always stayed as the raid leader. What? No, I don't mean that he is incapable. Rather, the opposite. I find it strange that we keep following the decrepit head. Continue. Yes. I think that the old head should just retire and have Gabble-sama succeed as our leader. If he does, then the orcs would have no reason to look down on us. As you just said, we should display Gabble-sama's power before all the lizardmen, have him purge those who reject him, and start a new age for our race. What could bring our race greater joy? Gabble nodded. So you guys had thought the same thing, huh? I had just been thinking whether it was not a good time to make my move. Would you fight alongside me? He looked around him. The lizardmen could only imagine a new age unfolding before them. They were certain that they would seize tremendous power, and, will you represent us? One of them asked. Gabble lightly nodded. So the time has come, very well. Let us fight together, he declared. Surrounding him, cries of joy could be heard from the lizardmen. Thus, the fool has taken the stage. And thus, the curtain rises as chaos spreads on the stage. Chapter 33, Audience. The lizardman's head nodded once in response to the report on the progress of battle. Since meeting Sawe 4 days had passed. Tomorrow they would be reinforced. With no great casualties thus far, they'll most likely see the sun rise again. Orcs' attacks have intensified to the extreme. Depending only on their resources, the passageways are overflowing with orcs. Orcs were affected little by the labyrinth and merely swarmed through it. By placing traps along the passageways, they managed to decrease their numbers if slightly. But still, thanks to the labyrinth, the lizardmen were able to avoid any real losses. The labyrinth diverges many times, and emergency escape passageways are still usable. They've been alternating the squads that fight the orcs most often and quickly reinforce teams that have engaged the enemy. Since this battle is under his direct command, he has no intention of becoming conceited. Because the reinforcements are coming, because there is hope, everyone is somehow struggling by. In reality, those who have fought the orcs were surprised by their strength. These orcs were worlds stronger than the usual. Right now, a single orc can challenge up to 3 lizardmen. Moreover, their power seems to be increasing. This is, of course, the result of the Orc Lord's command. The head also strictly ordered that those injured must immediately switch without. Since, should the injury result in death, the orcs will become stronger. Carefully, and without error thus far, they have been maintaining the defense line. And only a day left. When the reinforcements arrive, they'll probably be able to make use of the terrain to crush every orc. At the very least, they could at least alternate with the members stationed at the most important defense points. Thus filling his head with wishful thinking, the head relaxed a bit. That's when it came. The news of Gabble's return. Gabble was indignant. What's with this? The prideful lizardmen were cowardly hiding in holes from some lowly pigs. He was going blind from anger. However, all would soon be fine. He had returned and, like a proper lizardman, would fight with pride. With that thought, he headed to the head. Well done, Gabble. I presume you've been able to obtain the goblin's support? Hey. We've been joined by 7,000 warriors. Is that so? With this, we'll somehow make it. In that case, let's engage the enemy at once. After reporting thus to the head, he prepared himself for battle. Now that he had returned, he could not permit the orc's selfish action. Surely the head had been waiting for him to return. However, no, the time hasn't come yet. While you weren't here, we had been offered an alliance. They will be arriving tomorrow. And then, after holding a strategy meeting, we will be striking against the orcs. Completely out of the blue. Such unthinkable things the head had said. What? The head was not waiting for me? That thought led to dissatisfaction, which further worsened Gabble's mood. To depend on some unknown reinforcement against some lowly orcs, head, if you send me out, I'll quickly crush the orcs. Order me to go. His indignation growing, he was hoping to vent it on the enemies. However, no. We shall fight tomorrow. You must be tired, so rest up. Completely ignored. Gabble's mind went blank in anger. Completely ignoring him and depending on some strangers. Unforgivable. Head, no, father. Stop this foolishness. You seem to have gone senile, you just don't see the truth. What was that? Gabble, what are you planning? Up until now, he was holding back in respect of his father. In fact, there were many admirable qualities that he possessed. So Gabble was obedient. However, he refused to recognize Gabble, and that Gabble could not forgive. His time had finally come, that's all. So nodding once, he shot his subordinates the signal. Father, your time has come to an end. From now on, I am the new lizardman's head. Gabble loudly declared. At this declaration, the goblins noisily ran into the head's chamber. Armed with stone spears, they surrounded the head and his guards. Gabble's subordinates, the hand-picked elite, also readied themselves behind the goblins. Gabble, what is the meaning of this? Unable to understand the situation, the head raised a panicked voice. How unusual. However, that only pleased Gabble's superiority complex. Father, good work up until now. Leave the rest to me and enjoy your retirement. His subordinates then disarmed the head and his guards. And then, Gabble took the head's, no, his father's spear into his hands. The spear, a magic item called the Water Vortex Spear, is the symbol of the lizardmen themselves. An item with overflowing magical power. Held by the strongest lizardmen. A weapon that was most fitting for Gabble. And looking at his father and the guards, leave the rest to me. You'll probably be restrained until the war is over, but bear with it, okay?" So he called out. "Wait, Gabble. Stop this selfishness. At least, wait until tomorrow." Ignoring his father's pleas, what an eyesore. "Take him away." So he ordered. Of course, he had no intentions of having him killed. He needed him out of the way, though. Gabble needed to personally beat the head. Of course, as a new hero who'd stand atop of all the lizardmen, such an event was necessary. Surely then his father would recognize his strength and praise him. The mere thought made him giddy. The new head, taking along his goblins, proceeded to take command over the lizardmen. They will soon hear about the usurpation anyways. And once they acknowledge him, they will set off to fight. Gabble could not imagine the possibility of defeat. His father's warning were completely wasted on him. From the beginning, Gabble's followers were cheering on, demanding the opening act of the play. The ones he found in the prison were the same. Drunk on their praise, Gabble enjoyed sitting on the throne. His time had finally arrived. He had completely ignored the trivial things like an orc invasion. The head was tormented by regret. "Don't be hasty." So he was told many times before. And this was the situation he had found himself in. He was certain in his control over his brethren. But to have been betrayed by his own son, this is very bad. If this goes on, the lizardmen will attack without waiting and will meet certain demise. Making up his mind, he looked at the guard captain. He is another one of his sons, Gabble's brother. Guard captain noticed the head's signal and nodded. "Go." The moment the head screamed that word, the guard captain broke free of the restraints and took off running. They needed to let their ally know about this situation. That messenger, Sawe, did not hide his aura. So, surely upon getting out of the labyrinth, he would know where to go. Betting on that fleeting possibility, the head sent his son out. He had thought about restraining Gabble's subordinates. However, he did not have the heart to hurt his brethren, so decided to simply escape. The head, intending to take responsibility, stayed in prison. Only 5 days. That promise he could not keep, and now lamented his failure. And hoped that his failure did not result in them being abandoned. Surely he was offered an alliance because of some value they had seen in the lizardmen. Perhaps now they had lost what little value they had. Gabble was probably busy making his debut. In that case, no one will be sent to replace the tunnel defense squads. With reinforcements, the orcs will gradually grow stronger and the defense teams will be eventually overrun. The women and civilians we had gathered in the center of the labyrinth will then be defenseless. Should that happen, but grieving won't stop this. We will defend them to the end. That was the head's decision. To buy even a bit more time. That was the only thing he could do. Chapter 34, The Outbreak of War. That day, the orcs' army filled the marshes with thousands of troops. If you looked from above, you'd see the swarming the tunnels, as if an incessant maelstrom. However, those present were only a small part of their army. The orcs decided to invade by circling around the lake. With little resistance they had occupied the marshes and proceeded into the caverns. However, a commotion rippled through the swarm. For suddenly someone had ordered the lizardmen to attack. And that was the cause for the outbreak of war between the orcs and the lizardmen. The rulers of the marshes, the lizardmen. Possessing high battle abilities, they can maneuver smoothly through mud or swamp. Hiding among the grass, they approached the orc army and attacked undetected. Everything went according to plan. He had locked up the previous head in an underground chamber, reorganized the army, and had them relocate above ground. And, quickly assuming battle formations, he began an attack on the orcs. Gabble was not completely incompetent. He did lack the ability to see the bigger picture, but he certainly could lead a squad in battle. That ability he had inherited from his father, the former chief. The lizardmen respected strength. Thus, they wouldn't follow someone who only boasted of his strength. Gabble idolized an individual. For his sake, he had to display his competence. However, he left 1,000 warriors to guard the main chamber. It was occupied only by women and other civilians. If they have to, the women can also fight, but they lack the necessary strength. For that reason, he had been sending 500 extra troops at a time to the main chamber. That is, Gabble decided to gradually reinforce that defense line with troops fighting in the tunnels. Having thus relocated the troops, Gabble obtained control over the entire army. Their numbers, 7,000 goblins and 8,000 lizardmen. That was his fighting strength. Without depending on the labyrinth, he proceeded to meet his foe above ground. And leaving the bare minimum for defense, he deployed everyone to battle. The first attack was as described. They successfully divided the enemy and landed a devastating attack on their flanks. The orcs that the lizardmen scattered were hunted down by the goblins. Following Gabble's orders to the letter, the troops performed exceedingly well. The goblins, too, fought earnestly. Thus, they were able to advance with the rest of the troops. The success of the attack could thus be attributed to the ideal cooperation of individual units. Behold, Gabble thought, there is no need to fear the orcs. Father has gone senile. Thus he worried needlessly. I will calm his fears. After seeing my heroic feats, he will surely recognize me as the next head. For that end, we must clean up the orcs at once. Or maybe this whole scenario was planned out to pass the leadership onto me. So he thought. A cry for joy filled the field. Look at them. The lowly orcs are no match for the great lizardmen. Proud of his work, Gabble observed the battlefield. Things have gone well, until now. Having lost many soldiers, the orcs must have been walloping in despair. But Gabble did not know the terror of the Orc Lord. That the head had known the terror of the Orc Lord. That difference now bared its fangs. Gotcha 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 gotcha. The orcs were walking on the dead. On all fours, crawling over them. No, wait. They were not walking on them, they were eating them. A gruesome sight. The brave lizardmen warriors, hardened in many battles, this was an unusual sight. A sinister aura wrapped around the orcs. One warrior who was frightened by this sight tried to retreat a step and fell backwards. Without missing this chance, the orcs swarmed the warrior. He was dragged into the mud and ripped limb from limb. Since the war had begun, he was the first casualty. And that began it all. The orcs that were devouring stranded soldiers gradually obtained their abilities. That ability was not like Predator and could not perfectly replicate the skills. Nonetheless, they absorbed the lizardmen's power to some degree and shared it among those in their domain. That was one of the effects of the unique skill-starving ones. They were as much one swarm as they were an individual. Again, quite similar to the shared evolution of the fang wolf species. That is why the previous head was so afraid of letting any lizardman die. For the sake of not allowing the orcs to develop any further. Although they could not obtain all the abilities of those that ate, they could still acquire some of their special features. For example, the ability of the lizardmen to move freely through mud and swamp. For example, growing scales around their vital areas to defend. This kind of trivial changes they could do. However, that is how they can quickly change the tide of battle. Fear not. Show them the power of the high and proud lizardmen. The lizardmen regained their morale from Gabble's cry. They were rulers of the marshes fighting on their own land. They attacked again. They were still faster than the orcs, that much they were sure of. Even if they are overwhelmed by numbers, should they retreat to their defense lines they could surely crush the enemy again. However, when they tried to outflank the orcs again, they were met with a ready formation. The orcs' movements have gotten faster. Strange, thought Gabble, but far too late. Without the advantage in speed, they were now surrounded by many orcs. 5,000's troops have already cut off Gabble's escape. And they pressed their attack. Having too much faith in their speed, they blindly pursued the orcs in their retreat and were thus surrounded. Perhaps if the orcs were not under the influence of their lord, Gabble's group could have endured this predicament. One could continue discussing such suppositions without an end. The truth of the matter is, they were completely surrounded. As ants block of their prey's escape, so the orcs swarm them. Even if they fought with all their might, they will surely succumb soon. How could that be? Gabble could not understand. He desperately tried to rally his forces, screaming words of encouragement. However, the goblins have lost formation out of panic, and the lizardmen trembled in worry. This is bad. Thinking thus, he wanted to issue an order to retreat, but even he understood that they had no place to run to. To gather them all under his banner, he had forced the warriors to vacate the caverns. Even if had ordered a desperate retreat into the tunnels, the entrance was far too narrow. The goblins who would be running in first would obstruct their escape. And, without a way in, they would be slaughtered by the orcs. If they instead ran into the forest, they would be pursued and slaughtered. They could not retreat. Gabble understood that well. Why had his father fought in such a cowardly way? He had finally understood. Just how much of an idiot was I? Thought Gabble. But there was no time for regret now. Right now, Gabble had only one thing he could do. Increase the morale and lessen the worries of his comrades. Goowahaha. What a worried face you all make. I am here. There is no way I can lose to some orcs. Yes, to encourage his allies by saying something he himself did not believe. Their fate had been decided. Datta, the lizardman's head sighed. He was full of regrets. That, for one, he had mentioned the terror that Orc Lord was only in fairy tales. No, he had mentioned it at other occasions. However, the fact that he failed to convey his terror now caused the head endless regret. Had he explained it properly, maybe Gabble would have been more vigilant. But now it's too late. With a sigh, he cast such thoughts away. They still had things they needed to do. His kind, gathered in the main chamber, looked anxious. 4 paths lead to the chamber, one could be used to escape. The orcs could not come from the escape route, probably. It was a direct route into the forest. This was the only route that you couldn't get lost in, one that they had dug themselves. Therefore, they needed to observe the other 4. The units fighting in the tunnels slowly withdrew and reassembled in the main chamber. The chamber's defense line currently consisted of 1,500 soldiers. There were also probably some who have yet to withdraw. On the other hand, the orcs are numerous. They will probably soon discover this place. Hopefully, the remaining soldiers will return before they do. The head briefly glances down the escape route. With all their brethren gathering, the large chamber now feels very tight. If they had to escape at a moment's notice, it's hard to imagine them all being able to withdraw safely. Perhaps they need to begin evacuating small groups at a time. Whichever he chooses, the situation is bound to become chaotic. However, he must decrease the chance of extinction, no matter what it takes. However, even if they escape into the forest, the orcs will discover them sooner or later. And even if they are successful with their escape, surviving may prove impossible. Because of that, the head could not order the evacuation. The only thing he can do is buy time. Whether they come or not, he doesn't know, but he still bet all on the reinforcements. The head's suffering seemed as if it would continue on forever. Lizardman's guard captain escaped into the forest. Feeling an aura of strength, he headed in its direction. Though the lizardman boasted of high mobility in the marshes, the same could not be said about the forest. His breath ragged, his pulse unstable, the captain fatigued quickly. However, he had to keep running. His sprint could decide the future of his race. And like that, he continued for 3 hours. As if ignoring his bodily limits, he earnestly pressed on. Pressing on by will alone, he could collapse at any moment. He was well aware of the fact. Moreover, he did not know if the demon named Sawe was in fact up ahead. Whether he would agree to help, he also did not know. Should he even bother running? That thought crept from the dark corners of his mind. However, he refused to entertain the thought. He failed to stop Gabble's foolishness. So he believed. He had known that Gabble desired to be recognized by the head. However, he had not mentioned it to the head. The lizardman's hero, Gabble. He was also one of those who respected Gabble. To take responsibility for his mistake, the captain could not abandon his mission. If he stopped, he would not be able to run again. Thus, he pressed on. There was someone who saw this desperate sprint. Though the captain himself had not noticed that being pursued the captain soundlessly from branch to branch. Was he conversing with someone? Without a partner in sight, and without a voice, he appeared to be in the middle of a conversation. After it had ended, he nodded once. And, "Your will be done. I will act as you have commanded." Muttering thus, he swooped down in front of the captain. Chapter 35, War Preparations. After sending out Sawe, I had everyone else prepare for war. However, it's not like we were all going to set off. Since we don't know our enemy's abilities, we need to take it seriously from the start. The construction of the city is proceeding smoothly, but we have not prepared any fortifications. Thus, if we are attacked, relocating would be the best option. So I decided. So what are we to do? In response to that thought, the decisive battle will occur at the marshes. If we win, great. If we lose, we'll retreat back here as fast as circumstances allow. In that case, since fighting here wouldn't increase our chances of winning, we will barricade ourselves in the cave of the seal. While holding the fort, we will request help from the humans. If we request through the guild, they just might help, so prepare yourselves to evacuate at a moment's notice. Regarding our attack, I'm designating Benimaru as the captain in charge of the 100 wolf riders. Xian, you indiscriminately slaughter at your discretion. Hakiru will serve as my adjutant. I will create a network with telepathic communication for you all to join and issue orders as needed. A withdrawal order will be given by your commander me. Riduru will stay with the remaining goblins and see to the defense of the city. Dismissed. I thus conveyed the plan. Everyone nodded. No one disagreed. I had thought that there would be some complaints about requesting help from the humans, but seems like I was mistaken. I wonder if they have gotten over their aversion after spending some time with those adventurers. As for the guild request, if I sell the demonic steel, we should have enough gold. And besides, the orcs are as much a threat to the humans. If we hold a proper discussion, we should be able to gain their assistance. That much I probably shouldn't worry about. And besides, we're already trying to figure out just how dangerous this orc lord is. Anyways, completing the goblin's armor takes priority. I had ordered Kajin to quickly produce 100 armors. Benimaru, Hakiru, and Xian also need some armor. Before Sae returns with their response, we need to finish these preparations. If they reject our alliance, we will move as soon as we ascertain Gabble's motives. If we can't fight side by side, we should wait for the lizardmen to deal the first strike. Having thus decided, we concluded the conference. After dismissing the group, almost all immediately left. Only the three Oni and I were left inside. Do they want something? I looked inquisitively at Benimaru. Rimuru-sama, do you perhaps worry too much? Even if you do not trouble yourself to ride onto the battlefield, Hakiru and I alone should manage, would you not agree? As he said. Rimuru-sama is our lord. Commanding the battle can be left to us, if you so wish. So they said. No, that won't do at all. I mean, you guys have been hit by orcs before. But, of course, I didn't say that. We shouldn't count that time before they had evolved. Well, that should be fine. I just planned to observe the battle from above and leave the orders to Benimaru. I see, so it was like that. They agreed with my words. In the first place, I have never commanded a battle. While I've ran plenty simulations, I have no actual experience. Thus, as I observed from above, I intend to devote myself fully to relay orders. That aside, you guys, get yourselves ready. Unless you are planning on fighting a war in the nude? Nodding at my words, the three Oni. And thus, we headed towards the production building. Dedicated to the Department of Production, a building as large as a gymnasium made of wood. We had planned on reinforcing the walls with mortar, but have yet to get around to it. Still, the building is the largest in its kind and looks pretty impressive. Upon entering, we are assaulted by the noise of hard labor. At my order, they are busy producing 100 sets of armor. Well, actually, only the dwarf Garm and Doldo are making things with 10 apprentice goblins of system. The rest are preparing raw material and transporting completed products. We proceed further in. Recently, they've also warded off rooms for specialized products. Only Shuna can enter that room, the rest are forbidden. She is far too skilled and teaching others will take too long. Goblinas were also learning the textile craft and are right now working under Garm producing hemp linen clothing. Gradually, they should move on to finer work with silk. Since under the armor one must first wear linen. We proceeded towards Shuna's room and, after I announced ourselves, entered. Shuna greeted us with a smile. I don't know when it happened, but I suddenly found myself wrapped in a beautiful kimono. Not pure white, but dyed in a pale crimson color. Needless to say, it was cute. Standing up from a chair, I had been waiting. I wished to participate in the conference myself, but feared unable to contribute better than with Emil. I humbly ask your forgiveness. However, I had finished preparing Rimuru-sama's dress. And Ani-sama and the rests by the way. By the way, huh? Ho ho ho. That's only to be expected. Well, considering Shuna-sama's marvelous skill, I would presume mine to have been made as well. The three thus responded. Here they are. With those words, she brought out more dresses. A pure white kimono. Having received mine, I was guided to a room to change. First, I entered and began changing. Changing into my child form that wore the black fur coat. Removing the coat, I wrapped myself in the kimono that Shuna had made. A glossy linen. First-class silk that feels wonderful to the touch. Underneath, I'll probably wear the pants I previously received. Putting the silk to my body, it immediately changed size to fit me. This one also became a magic item. Huh. Seems like after mixing with my magic it becomes as if a part of my body. Just to try, I change into an adult and, as expected, the clothing grows appropriately. What a wonderful product she had made. Wearing the coat over it, I finished with the clothing. Then, I take out an item from my breast pocket. It is a beautiful mask. The one Shizu-san had forgotten, the anti-demon mask. My body radiates a small amount of magical energy as aura. If I focus, I can conceal it, but there have been times when I've let it spill. Thus, I plan to use this mask to hide it. It had broken once before, but I had Doldo repair it. I equipped the mask. Strange, but it makes me feel calm. Normally, since I don't need to breathe, I don't do it even as a human. I could create lungs if I wanted to, but since I don't see a need to, I haven't made them. However, when wearing a mask I can pretend to be breathing. And it doesn't feel strange. Okay. When we head out into the world, let's use this appearance. Returning to my child form, I had so decided. Wearing the clothing, I exit the fitting room. Praising my looks for a while, Shuna continued to help the other Oni. This clothing. Absorbing the aura of its wearer, it can change its appearance. My clothing turned jet black. Benimaru's blood red. Hakuru's pure white. Xian's, of course, turned purple. It'd be strange if it turned orange or something. Seems like even if this clothing rips, as long as it absorbs our magical energy, it can repair itself. Magic items completely specialized for our use. Truly magnificent. And I must admit that I was surprised when I heard that we can change how the clothing looks at will. Makes changing clothing seem kind of pointless. In the first place, had you bought this, you just might wear it for the rest of your life. I don't know how good human magic items are, but this one is worthy of an A rank appraisal. A very high quality product. Thus, I can probably expect some great weapon from Kurobi. After saying thanks and taking Saoe's clothing with us, we took our leave. The next place we stopped by was Kurobi's smithy. Recently, he has been so busy with production that he hasn't even shown his face around the city. That he's fine in there, I know, he's probably the type that gets engrossed in what he loves. Seems like he's been working in there without sleep the past few days. Cajun had mentioned it before the conference. The door to his room was open. Cajun had provided him with a set of tools he took from the kingdom. Next to his room stands a warehouse where I deposited the materials I kept. The demon steel I held I also deposited there. As a material it's also there, but I just help but think of iron ore as unreliable. We had wanted to investigate the nearby mountains for any iron ore deposits, but planned it for a later day. Because of ongoing construction, there have been too few hands around here. From within the room the sound of clashing metal and the heat of the furnace leaked. This is the only place with a high-temperature furnace. Made with backed clay, a furnace we had built. Though it was made with my fire manipulation ability, it came out pretty well. I plan to later analyze this furnace and increase the number of them in the village. I have a ton of plans, but not enough hands. That aside, having noticed us, Kurobi came out. Showing his whole face, I have been waiting. By all means, come and behold. He greeted us with a face that wanted to boast of his products. 2 hours had passed. We were listening to the explanation with eyes devoid of life. It's fine already. We get it. It's amazing. I had wanted to say those words many times, but just couldn't bring myself to. Seeing Kurobi's happy face stopped me. What can I began thinking thus. Rimuru-sama, would now be a good time? Telepathically, I was asked. By Saoe. I had sent him to offer an alliance, but did he encounter trouble? Could he be lost? After leaving looking so cool, only to come back saying, my bad, I have no clue where to go, where is it? Even the benevolent me would get mad at that. I had begun worrying slightly, but of course the worry was needless. With a voice free of worry, I had met with the lizardman's head. He accepted our offer. However, he wishes for us to journey there. What did he say? To have arrived already. Isn't it too fast? Not even half a day has passed since the conference ended. That's no problem. If anything, I was planning on settling it there anyways. And besides, you already arrived? Yes. By moving through the shadows I arrived at the marshes without great difficulty. If it were to someone I knew, I could have moved instantly. That aside, when shall we hold the strategy meeting? That aside, huh? Isn't it a damn amazing skill? That shadow step. I can also use it, but was it that amazing? I haven't used it that much yet, though. That was a surprise. Oh well. Yeah, preparations will take some time, and we'll also need to account the time it takes for the wolf riders to travel there, set at 5 days from now. Understood. I shall do as you command, after the negotiations and come back. If you have to as a clone, as you will. He handled the negotiations well. What a useful guy. We are quite a distance away from the marshes. If marching by foot, it would take 2 weeks. The wolves could over it in 3 days. That lizard Gabble came riding on some big monster. But we shouldn't arrive before him. There's a chance he will strike us in back. Rather, observing the situation and seizing the initiative should be something that we will do. After thinking about these things, I tuned in to the never-ending explanation. I apologize for my belated appearance. Sae appeared from the shadows. Just like a ninja. Giving him his clothing, I asked him to change. At Sae's appearance, Kurobi seems to have came back from his own little world. Ohin. He cleared his throat and brought out a number of swords. We finally see what we came for. He showed us 6 swords. Simple straight sword. An elegant tachi. Shaped like a cane, katana. A massive adachi. And 2 ninjato. Pleased with his creations, he lined them up. And thus said, for Amuro-sama, I offer this straight sword. This is but a base, it is not yet complete. We wish to create a weapon from demonic steel as Rimuru-sama has suggested. That is our goal, but Kajin and I are busy researching towards that end. Therefore, please wait some more. Until then, please keep the sword inside of you. With those words, he handed me the sword. I see, they are still continuing their research? Makes me excited. Something to look forward to. Got it. With a nod, I deposit the sword into my stomach. To let it mix with my magic in there. Kurobi nods once and hands me another sword. This is a prototype among prototypes. Please honor us by using it as a replacement. I'll happily put it to use. Using the skills I have been learning from Hakiru recently. Really wanted to have a sword. Thus, I hang it on my hip. Somehow, it makes me feel strong. And each one of us receives a sword. Benimaru the Tachi. Hakiru the katana. Shion the adachi. How will she draw it? It's a freaking huge katana, please fret not. The scabbard is made from magical energy, it will disappear when you wish. Is what he said. It looks so heavy that a normal person couldn't use it, even Kajin would be hard to wield it. The dwarfs also have some bizarre strength, but can barely lift it with both hands. Xian, however, holds it easily with one hand. Sae came back after changing and took the 2 ninjato. A 2-sword style, somehow it fits him. After we had taken our weapons, Garm stopped by. He had finished Oni's armor. Seems like he was running out of iron so. Thus, he was unable to create full plate armor. Instead, he made it out of monsters materials scale mail. Much like the one they had given to the adventurer Cabal before. This too seems to have been affected by my magical energy. Created partially from the demonic steel I had, it is considerably stronger than that test product. To me, however, he gave dark leather guards. And thus, we finished preparing our equipment. The following day, the goblins have finished their preparations. With 1 week's worth of provision, they wait for us. Next comes the decisive battle. Only bring enough food to get there and back. If we burden the troops with too much, we'll lose speed. Mobility is everything. If we fail, we must run. I had thought preparing provisions would take 2 days, but seeing how they were ready already, we managed to finish early. Well, though I said 5 days, there should be no problem with coming early. The enemy is the Orc Lord. Now, advance. I simply declared. If we lose, then that's that. We proceed as fate allows. The simpler the goal the better. To my declaration the troops responded with a battle cry. A shout capable of shattering the enemy's hearts filled the forest. The goblins atop of the wolves are the main force. Though there are many new members among them, the goblins that ride the storm wolves are the elite among them. Morale is high. And having thus seen their spirit, my own worries were dispelled. We shall win. Enjoying this too much is probably bad. However, riding into battle while imagining defeat is also no good. Riding towards the marshes, towards war, we thus set off.